Welcome to ReBloom, the podcast about reinvention, second chances, and rising into the next chapter of your life. I'm your host, Vanessa Bright, entrepreneur, environmental leader, and someone who believes it's never too late to grow into who you're meant to be. If you're rebuilding, rediscovering, or reclaiming your power, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Welcome to ReBloom. I am Vanessa Bright, your host. And the first episode is just for us. Before we bring in guests that I'm excited to talk to, I wanted to sit with you for a moment and tell you who I am, not the resume version, the real version. Because if we're going to do this together, if we're going to talk about renewal and living with intention, then you should know the whole person behind the podcast. The founder, the mother, the educator, the woman who line dances and wears cowboy boots and cowboy hats with absolutely zero interest in Western, and is out there over 50, still trying to figure things out. Yes, the whole person. Because the podcast is called ReBloom for a reason. And to understand why I built it, you need to understand where I've been. My journey begins in a classroom, but not the kind most people picture. For years, I worked as an educator for the Maryland correctional system in a prison for women. Think about that for a moment, because it shapes everything hereafter. Every time I walked through security checkpoints, past locked doors, enter rooms with women who the world had given up on. Every time I watched those same women be engaged, ask questions, and say things that really moved me. They thought deeply about their lives, the choices they had made, and their futures. They weren't women that had given up, but they were women who hadn't been given a real chance. And that distinction matters. There's a story I keep coming back to. People talk about Michael Jordan like he was simply born different, and maybe he was extraordinary. But Jordan himself has said that there were players in his neighborhood that were just as talented, just as gifted, just as fast, just as hungry, just as capable. The difference wasn't his talent. It was the opportunity. It was who got the coach, the court time, the scholarship, the belief. I think about that every time someone writes off a person because of their record or their history. What if that person was the Michael Jordan no one ever invested in? What if the only thing standing between who they are and who they could be is a single door that nobody bothered to open? Everyone deserves a second chance, not because it's a nice thing to say, because we've seen over and over again what happens when people are actually given one. That experience in the classroom didn't just inform my career, it changed my life trajectory. I came to understand in a deep way that the distance between who someone is and who the world says they are, that is the gap where the real work begins. And I knew I wanted to spend my life in that gap. A pivotal conversation with an executive director in Chicago who was leading a reentry organization crystallized something I had been sitting with for a while. After that conversation, I knew I had to build something. In 2019, I launched Maryland Reentry Resource Center. We are a reentry support and community engagement organization, and our work is rooted in one core belief: that people returning home from incarceration deserve more than a checklist. They deserve real support, real connection, and real access to opportunity. The people that we serve carry significant barriers that don't disappear the moment someone walks out of a facility. Housing, employment, mental health, legal history, broken family lives and ties. That takes time to rebuild. These things are real, and they require wraparound services from people who are willing to stay in the work for the long haul. And that's what Maryland Reentry does. We stay. But let me tell you something that they don't put in the nonprofit startup guides. Grants are a Band-Aid. They are necessary, especially early on, but they are not a foundation. They can disappear with a change in the priorities, a shift in funding cycles, a board decision made in a room where you're not invited into. And if your entire operation is built on grant funding, you are one denial letter away from a crisis. Believe me, I know. I learned that quickly, and I also learned something else, something that's harder to say out loud, but it's important to say. As a Black female founder running both a nonprofit and a for-profit enterprise, the path to startup capital looks fundamentally different than it does for others. When you are not a proven concept, when you don't have a track record or of exits or a network that already knows your name, investors look at you very differently. They ask different questions. They require more proof. They hold the bar higher and they move it further. This is not a complaint, it's a fact. Documented, studied, undeniable. Black women receive a fraction of a percentage of the venture capital funding in this country. Not because the ideas aren't there, not because the execution isn't there, not because the work ethic is not there. It's because the access isn't there. Because the proven concept has never been an objective standard. It's about who gets the benefit of the doubt from the start. White male founders pitch ideas and get funded on vision. The rest of us pitch vision and get asked for 5 years of financials. I say this not to invite a pity party. I say it because it's the truth. And I built my response to that truth into the structure of everything I've created since. If the systems won't fund us the way they fund others, then we build our own revenue. We create our own proof. We stop waiting for permission. That thinking led directly to GreenLift, our social enterprise. And that's the part that keeps me going too. Because when someone we serve gets housed or called to say that they just got promoted or looks you in the eye and says, "You believed in me," and when I didn't believe in myself, that's worth fighting for through every closed door to get to. A few years into running Maryland Reentry, I started asking myself the questions about sustainability. And I want to tell you where the answer came from because it didn't start with a strategy session. It started years earlier, long before Maryland Reentry existed, long before GreenLift was even a thought. My son was diagnosed with asthma at the age of a year and a half. Any parent who's watched a child struggle to breathe knows there's nothing quite like that fear. And when you get started researching, really digging in, you find what the science has been saying for years. Rising asthma rates are heavily linked to environmental factors, air quality, toxins and products we use every day, the way we treated the land and the water around us. That sent me down a road that I wasn't expecting. I started changing what I bought, what I used in my home, how I thought about consumption and waste. I became intentional about recycling, about consuming less, about what we were putting into this world and what we were taking out of it. I started paying attention to the environment, not as a distant policy issue, but as something deeply personal, something that was showing up in my child's lungs. That experience didn't just change my habits, it changed my lens. The same mother who walked into that correctional facility believing in human potential was also quietly, personally reckoning with what we owe the world we leave behind. There's a quote that took root in my heart. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. I was living that truth before I had the words for it. So years later, when I was running Maryland Reentry and asking the hard questions about sustainability, something that didn't depend entirely on grants that could disappear overnight, the answer arrived in the intersection of everything I had already been carrying. I founded GreenLift, a Maryland-based social enterprise that brings together two things that most people wouldn't think to connect: Chesapeake Bay environmental restoration and second chance employment. Our crews do real, meaningful environmental work: tree planting, bioretention installation, invasive species removal, and much more. They are healing the land, and at the same time, they are healing themselves. They're gaining skills, earning wages, rebuilding confidence, and creating a work history that belongs to them. GreenLift was the answer to two things at once: the environmental crisis I had watched touch my own family, and the recidivism crisis that I had watched play out in the lives of our clients. It wasn't a compromise between two causes. It was a convergence of one mission, one operation, two ecosystems restored. And it was the answer to the funding problem, or at least the beginning of one. I want to be honest with you because that's the only way I know how to be. GreenLift is the vision. The model is right. The mission is real, but we're still in the fight mode for startup capital to scale. And the fight is its own kind of hard. A revenue generating enterprise can give you something grants never can. A track record, proof that the market agrees with what you're building, the ability to walk into a room and say, we're not waiting for someone else to believe in us. We built something that works. But you have to get resource enough to get there first. And the first chapter, when you're building the proof, not presenting it, that is where the gap lives for founders who look like me. So we're doing what we always do. We keep going, we keep building, we keep making the case, not because it's easy, but because the work is worth it. And the people depending on us don't have the luxury of us giving up. I love being outside. Spring and fall are my seasons. Something about the fresh air, the beautiful foliage, the colors of flowers, it just makes me feel happy. So when I think about our crews out there doing the work in the Chesapeake watershed, planting trees, breathing that air, doing meaningful work with their hands, I feel it. There is healing in nature. There always has been. That was God's design. The land doesn't know that they have a record. The work doesn't care what they've been through. It just asks, are you here? Are you willing to restore me? And our people show up every time. This is what second chances look like in practice. Not a speech, not a program, not a brochure. Hands in the soil, roots going down, something growing where there was nothing before. Around the same time that GreenLift was taking shape, I started seeing another gap. There were reentry organizations and other nonprofits doing great work, but many of them are drowning in administrative burden. Case managers are stretched thin, data scattered across systems, progress in programs unable to demonstrate the impact in the ways that attract serious funding. So I started building something else. We call it Reintrigent. It's an AI-powered case management platform designed specifically for reentry organization, but with the capability of helping any organization that's providing case management services. This isn't technology for technology's sake. This is about freeing up human beings on the front lines to do what only human beings can do. Sit with someone, encourage someone, help them find their way forward. If a platform can handle the documentation, the tracking, the data, and provide a roadmap, then a case manager gets to spend their time with the client instead of a spreadsheet. We started with direct service. We've moved into environmental enterprise, and now we're using AI to increase our impact at scale. Every step has been the same thing, removing barriers between people and the support they deserve. Reintrigent has been accepted into the Johns Hopkins Innovation Lab, and we're building something I believe will change how reentry services are delivered. But what I want you to hear is this: the technology only matters because the people matter. That's the whole point. It always has been. So now you know what I built, but let me tell you a bit about who I am when I step away from the work. I love spring and fall. Those two seasons just do it for my soul. Give me a cool morning, some fresh air in the outdoors, and I'm in my element. I love swimming. There's nothing like water to help relax you. I line dance, and I'm serious about it. There's something about learning the steps, staying in rhythm, and moving with a room full of people. It's just fun. And if you never tried it, I'm just going to say, don't knock it. And yes, I wear cowboy boots and cowboy hats proudly. But don't put on a Western movie for me. The aesthetic, love it. The 2-hour wagon trail, I'll pass. I love my work deeply, even on the hard days, even when it's exhausting, even when the systems we're fighting feel immovable. I love it because of the people, because of what's possible, because of what I've seen happen, and when someone finally gets the support they deserve. And then there's this. I'm over 50. I know who I am, and I'm still looking for my life mate. I'll be honest with you, it's not easy. Dating after 50 is its own kind of journey. You know yourself better than you ever have, which is a gift, but you also know exactly what you don't want to settle for, which narrows the field considerably. I haven't given up. I'm just being honest, and it's one of the places in my life where I'm still waiting for the bloom. And that's the thing about ReBloom. It's not just for the areas of life which you have already figured out. It's for the ones you're still sitting on, still hoping in, still showing up for. So here we are. You might be wondering what a reentry founder, a social enterprise CEO, a technology builder, a mother who changed her entire household because of what asthma taught her, a woman who's fighting for funding in rooms not designed for her, a line dancer in cowboy boots and cowboy hats, a woman still searching for her person is doing hosting a podcast about personal growth and living with intention. And the honest answer is because I need this too. Everything I've described, Maryland Reentry, GreenLift, Reintrigent, all of it has been built in the middle of a real life. A complicated, sometimes exhausting, always meaningful life. And somewhere along the way, I realized that the same philosophy I bring to the work I do for others, I have to bring to myself. ReBloom is about renewal. It's about what it looks like to grow, to shed what no longer serves you, to come back to yourself after loss, burnout, transition. It's about living with intention rather than just moving through the motions. The word rebloom matters to me because blooming isn't always linear. Sometimes you have to go dormant. Sometimes the season just isn't right. And then if the conditions are right and you've done the work, you come back. Brighter, deeper, more yourself than you ever were before. This is a conversation I want to have with others every episode. I will bring guests on that are doing the work in their own lives, leaders, problem solvers, entrepreneurs, builders, everyday people who walked through something hard and came out transformed. And I will bring myself honestly to every conversation. The mother, the founder, the educator, the work in progress. The woman in the cowboy boots who's still figuring things out and showing up anyway. So again, my name is Vanessa Bright. I am the host of the podcast ReBloom. I'm a founder, an educator at heart, a social entrepreneur, a mother, a lover of spring mornings and open water, a line dancer, and a work in progress. I'm so glad you're here. This is ReBloom. Let's grow. Thank you for spending this time with me on ReBloom. If this conversation spoke to you, share it with someone else who might be ready for their next chapter. And remember, reinvention doesn't mean starting over, it means starting wiser. Until next time, keep growing, keep rising, and keep blooming.